Today it is Thursday, and this is a day where we have Paul from DeFinity who joins us to look at some price action on the top crypto projects, including Bitcoin and some altcoins, specifically some of your viewer picks from last week. We look at them so you can have input on this show. Just tell us in the comments section, not in the chat section, but the actual comments, what you want to look at. And we'll look at it the following week. Now, it's a really interesting week because the U.S. is waiting on a decision out of the Federal Reserve, and everyone's expecting an interest rate hike. And by the time this airs, we will already have that. But what does that mean? And I love days we're having Paul on because he looks at not just the crypto market, but he looks at the dollar versus other currencies and all kinds of international markets because he is an expert on price analysis. By an expert, it doesn't mean that he has a crystal ball or we have a crystal ball on this channel. It means he has 30 years experience, and this is what he does full time. Welcome to the Crypto Rainn channel. I'm your host, Jay Rainn. And if you like money and you like crypto and you're looking for a real investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family by liking this video and subscribing with the all notifications bell enabled. Now, we're not financial advisors. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul invests in crypto and many other things, and we share with you what we're thinking is going on. All right. We also want to give a special thanks to our Patreon members who support us. We do have a private Discord for our Patreon members that they get access to. There's also a Telegram that you can join below if that's of interest to you. Let's get right into it, and let's welcome Paul onto the show.
Well, it's great to be here. A week goes by very quickly, doesn't it? And it's quickly. It's incredible to think we're already in March, so, halfway through, and it wasn't long ago it was a new year. So my goodness me, I don't know if it's just my age or whether just time is running fast, but there we are.
It went from December 8th straight to here because December 8th was the day that was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this December pump is not going to happen. And we're still in that December 8th, December pump did not happen. we're all the way in March now.
Yeah, and I that's a really good point. And then I think the market just got very, very bearish, perhaps over bearish, and the market hasn't gone down as far as like the bearish expectations have been. But on the other side of that, we're still consolidating. So we're consolidating from a medium term and a short term perspective, waiting for those breakouts. But the long term picture is still bullish. So, this is a time where I guess we can sit and do some research and get ready for the coins that we like the best. And then when it looks like everything's going to turn, we can get going. But I know you're always excited about good companies, or good coins, I should say, when their coins get low, because that gives you an opportunity to buy cheaply. And I get excited when things break out from ranges. So you'll see the kind of excitement in my voice when we get some really good technical patterns, probably be in a few sort of months time, or hopefully quicker. But at the moment we're still consolidating, so we need to check those that price action out in quite a few markets. So I've got a few things to show you that are outside of the the cryptocurrency realm, because there's so much interesting stuff going on that I think is keeping.
Look at that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of keeping the cryptocurrency story on the back burner. And you mentioned the interest rate hike that's going to come. Now, we at DeFinity have had the view that the hike would be 25 basis points and it wouldn't be 50, because there was this big move up in oil, and this was before the war, and the dollar was always, the dollar's rallying. Now, if the dollar rallies, companies such as Apple aren't going to make as much money abroad because their goods become more expensive. Plus, you've got shipping costs going up, and you've got raw material costs going up, like aluminium, which I can show you. And obviously, food prices are going up. So we've got this big push on inflation, yet there's this big drag on the economy. So this is a chart we've got up here of the dollar index. And the dollar and the cryptocurrencies don't have a one-to-one relationship in terms of correlation. But I think it helps to have the dollar in decline for cryptocurrencies to go up. So I prefer this to be going down. Now, we were targeting a move to 97.5 and then looking for a move to extend to 100. And it looks like that will probably happen. We're in the final stages potentially of this dollar move, but there's a bit more to come. And it will probably be on the announcement when the Fed announced 25 basis points and perhaps rein back from potentially hiking further. Now, another thing that's telling us that the market is getting really worried about inflation is those bond yields that you know so much about from your days of your mortgage times. So, you know, when people are looking to borrow money to buy a house, they look at the 10-year curve and say, well, how much is this going to cost me? And money's priced off that in the mortgage market. And that's been going up. Now, we've recently broken this 2% level and it's going higher. So yields are going up. And what that means is that wherever you're making money on your deposit or whatever investment you're going to make, you've got to think about what you could get by just simply putting it in a bank account or getting yield from a bond. So those bond prices yield prices are going up. So the bond prices are going down because they work in inverse. And so this is the 10-year money, which is very important. And we also look at the 30-year. So this is the 30. So if you were to buy bonds and hold them for 30 years, this is what you'd be paid. Now, it's still very small. It's 2.5%, you know, pretty much what Bitcoin does in half a day in terms of volatility, but yields are still going up. So so I'm looking at that in the background and then looking at what's going on with Bitcoin itself. And what I can see in Bitcoin is we're still in this range, and I'm erring on the side of being more positive than the rest of the market. But you know, I have to be realistic about the price action, and this is in a consolidation right here. So the level where it's failed on 2 occasions to break out to the upside is this 45,000 area. And it was rallying like a beast towards it last week. And I even, perhaps I jinxed it. I'm sorry if I did, but I said, well, it's up 9%. It's got to go up another day. And it just turned around and went straight back down again, which was incredible, really. But it's very rare that markets do that. But that shows you how much the market wants to stay in a range. Even after a 9% rally, it reversed very, very quickly. But it's not gone into a downward trend either. So we're still in this like holding pattern, waiting for this breakout. Now, today's price action is pretty good, but it's not taking us outside the realm of this range. So we need 45,000 to go. This 45,478 is the exact level. And if that happens, that'd be a really good sign. I'd like that. And I'm quite happy that it's going sideways. But I want to show you another couple of coins here. Of course, we're going to look at Ethereum, which has been lagging a lot. And really, this is the one that's worried me the most because it's such an important major coin. But it's been in this triangular constriction. And if it breaks this low or this yellow lower support line, then the downside opens up. And I really don't want that to happen. So Bitcoin looks a bit more positive. Ethereum looks a little bit muted. And we're going to get a breakout from either one or the other to indicate the direction, the next direction for the next, you know, few weeks, and perhaps further. But if we then start looking at some of the other coins, like Solana's just bouncing around on the base, so it's hit this 79 area. It's just sort of bouncing along. I'm a little concerned that each rally's a bit lower. I don't like that. I want to see that pattern break out and it to move higher, and we've got the moving average turning down as well. So it's holding support, which is a really good thing. If it wanted to go down, it would normally just sort of drop off a cliff and go in a straight line down, and you know, then all the stops would be taken out. But at least it's holding in. But some of the other markets are looking a little better. Cardano at the moment actually still is a bit of under a cloud. It's still trying to reverse, but it did spike. So we've had another one of these sharp sell-offs that it's not matched. So that potentially could turn around. But DOT basically is, you know, Polygon is doing okay. It looks like this has broken its downward trend line, which it's taken a while to do that. But this is looking more positive, and it looks like it's trying to break out. Now, at least needs to do a little bit more, needs to take out this 19 area, or, you know, 20 would be good because it's a round number. But this looks like it could be, you know, giving us or tipping the hand towards the upside. So from a kind of 60-40 to being bullish, I'd go 65, you know, 45 or 35 to the upside, I should say. I think you can shift a little bit more to the upside because some of these other coins are starting to look a bit more bullish. But it's still a wait and see. It's still a wait and see scenario. We do need that 45,000 and level to break in Bitcoin, 45,473, I think it was. That is the main level. And if that goes, then I think we can start to become bullish medium term and long term, and even short term. I still think the market will range even if it does that. I don't think the market is ready for this big surge, but it would certainly improve the broader technical picture.
So, question on the Bitcoin chart there, it looks like what a lot of technical analysts call a bear flag. If you'll pull that back up, are you? Like you said, it is a bearish looking chart. That doesn't mean it always breaks to the downside. It means it often breaks to the downside.
Yeah, well, that's possible. But you see, what a bear flag is usually, and it gets misquoted by many people. A bear flag is a very, very short-term trading situation. This area here is more like a bear flag because the market goes down, it goes sideways in a compressed sort of flag type pattern, and then it breaks down really quickly. So flags don't normally take this long to complete. This would, if it's going to be anything bearish, it'll be a triangle, because you can see we've got this lower line that's rising, and we've got a flat line at the top which doesn't fit the picture of a triangle, which is why I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. Ethereum, on the other hand, is a triangle. So this is reducing highs, so the highs are getting lower and the lows are getting higher, and it's being kind of pressed into a corner. And normally we would take the prior direction as the bias for the breakout. So the prior direction was a breakout, was a trend to the downside. It's moving into a triangle, and therefore the breakout should then come to the downside. So that's why I'm a little bit more concerned about Ethereum than Bitcoin, and I'm waiting to see which one triggers. But this is more like, in terms of reading the price, it's more like a double bottom, because you've got a spike low, another spike low, and you've got a volatile range. So normally when a market is reversing its trend, you get this swinging in like a volatile, what I call volatility. Option volatility is something else. When the market's moving quickly, usually the price action is quite smooth. So that for me isn't volatility. This is volatility, even though it's not actually going anywhere. So option prices would probably consider this not to be volatile, but price action wise, maybe a better word for this is turbulent. So if you imagine this is an aeroplane and you're flying along, you're bumping up and down in this really awful kind of range. And the more violent that is, the more likely it's a fight between the bull and the bears, indicating a reversal of trend. So continuation patterns tend to be very smooth and compressed. Let me give you, I could show you an example potentially for what you might see in a continuation pattern in the equity markets, because we've had some really big breakdowns in the stock markets. So this is an example. This is the Chinese stock market. Now, I've been bearish on the Chinese stock market. And you see, as it comes into the low, all the little bounces become smaller and smaller. So this is a continuation pattern, and then it breaks the low. Look how many times it held that low, breaks it, and then the market absolutely collapsed. Now, we've had an incredible rally here. They've obviously done something with rates to kind of mitigate it. But this is the sort of thing that I'm talking about as a continuation pattern. But if we go back to Bitcoin, you'll see that it's actually far more volatile than that. It's like the range is going on for a long time. The swings are really large, and that's usually indicative of a reversal pattern. So I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt, and I've wanted to since we've hit these lows, and I will continue to do so until this lower line breaks.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So the bearish flag and the flags often get thrown out in, very volatile price action that to me, it's just like, well, you could call anything, you could say that that's a bullish flag, but it's not, because it's gone on for too long. A flag should be a really short-term compressed move. So a bullish flag is the market goes straight up, compresses, and then goes straight up again.
Whereas this one, every time it hits that certain level, it then bounces back down. It keeps hitting the $45,000 mark right near there, and then going down.
Yes.
So it's not showing that compression because it's gone up and hitting $45,000 twice.
Exactly. So it's reaching new highs, whereas with Ethereum, every time it tries to rally, it's getting sold a little quicker. So
Sooner and sooner.
you're getting this pressure into this triangle, which is why I like triangles so much, because they take a while to form. So it gives you a better time to say, well, look, I'll buy the breakout through 45,478. But if it takes this low out, and this low will be rising slowly, but if it takes out at the moment, it's around 30, is that 35? Around 35,570. So, and that will rise very slowly. So if it takes that out, I have to go bearish and say, there's going to be an extended move to the downside. And whilst it's in between, we just look at other evidence. So I like the fact that that Polygon's broken out and doing something interesting and kind of negating that descending triangle pattern, or the triangle pattern that could potentially lead to a big move down. As you saw in the Chinese market, there was that continuation pattern that led to a really big move on the downside, which is why, there are times when you've got to be flexible, and this is one of them.
Yeah. Did you want to look at the Polygon chart before we jump into?
Yeah. It was basically this one.
The dot chart. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's this one.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can see that this is broken the form of the descending triangle. So if it was going to be a triangle, it's kind of acting a bit strange.
And it's formed a nice little W there with a higher low.
Exactly. And this is off a spike as well. So, it may fail here. Look, it's the thing about reversal patterns. It's why I like trends so much, because trends tend to be smooth and you can go with breakouts much easier. But reversals, there is this will it, won't it, until it actually breaks out. So it's important that this gets through this 20 level, because that's where it failed last. But this would make quite a nice, double bottom if it can do it. But it's also, if it was acting like it was being sold and there was pressure and it was down here, then I'd be more concerned. But it's holding up okay, and I like that.
So
but if
your
we compare,
is that the markets are showing some signs that it might want to turn around by looking at Polkadot and then Bitcoin's chart. Though ETH looks worrisome, other ones are looking a lot more positive. Not to the point where you get interested yet, because you're looking for breakouts to the upside.
Yeah.
But you're seeing signs that it might be reversing and signs of a reversal pattern. The Bitcoin chart reminded me a lot, not quite as volatile, but the double bottom that we saw in March of 2020, and where it had some big spikes to the downside, and then it played around that range, and then it started a huge uptrend.
Well, look, the thing is, if we take a step back and do a flyby, as it were, and have a look at the big picture, if this starts to break up, then this whole pattern here is becoming a bullish triangular pattern, which would be amazing, because then it would mean that the market would consolidate, trade up, maybe trade down, but then break into new highs. So this is why this area for me is so important, that it holds and that it tries to push higher, and it would keep this trend going, which is why I think the big picture, which is why I'm holding a big picture view, because it hasn't confirmed a top. It confirms a top if it breaks this level here, which is 28,572, which was the prior massive support. So we really don't want that level to go. Now, there is a chance that it will go a bit lower, break this low. Let me just reset this chart. There's a chance it will go a bit lower, break down here, everyone then panics, gets short, and then it goes back up again. That's a scenario I'm kind of keeping open, and it turns around before it gets to this level here. But that's like a bridge we need to look at if we come to it. But for the moment, I'm quite happy, as I was saying last week, as long as it stays sideways, the longer it stays sideways, the more chance this is a base. And so I'm quite happy for it to go sideways for now, although I'd prefer it shows its hand and breaks this key resistance point.
Sounds great. Do you mind if we jump over to some viewer picks to take a look at some of the ones they wanted us to look at?
Absolutely, yes. So full disclosure, I got my timings mixed up because I'm here in the UK and you're an hour forward, and I haven't looked at any of them. But actually, I don't mind that because it means that that I get like an instant view, and I can give you my what's called System One view of it, rather than thinking too much about it and seeing things that aren't there. Now, SLP, I believe this should be, and that
Yep,
is.
that looks correct. Smooth Love Potion. Or
Now, what a cool name that is.
yeah.
Yeah, small love
So,
potion.
so
So
it
is it?
used to be Small Love Potion, and that chart still reflects it. They changed it to Smooth Love Potion because they never made like a large love potion.
Yeah, I was going to ask that exactly. So everyone must ask them that, and then they go, "Okay, all right, we're going to make a
Yeah, it's
small love."
related to this is something that you can earn in game by playing Axie Infinity. And
Mm,
they're having some inflation problems because a lot more players are playing it. They earn this by completing certain things every day.
yeah,
And so essentially, SLP is printed off every day as people play. Now, it gets burned when people use it for breeding. But because the game has generally slowed down and the growth has slowed down, the only sinkhole for this was breeding. And they did increase how much you needed in order to breed. And so that helps it burn more so you don't run away with this inflation. But prices earlier got up some crazy numbers, getting over 30 cents prior. That's versus Bitcoin, so we're not quite seeing it. But
yeah, right.
if you
Sorry.
look at versus USD,
Yeah,
it hit 30 cents. There we
is this
go.
right?
It is trading right now at about 1.6 cents. That's showing it as 16 cents. I don't know that's on Uniswap.
Let's let me put it in again as a code, and then there we go. So smooth love potion. Maybe that will. Is that it?
Yeah, it
Ah,
doesn't have as much history on that, but it was trading almost, 32, going close to 40 cents way back in August when everybody was talking about Axie Infinity and they were releasing some earnings that were crazy good. And it was right before this big metaverse pump. It coincided with like a gaming pump, a crypto gaming pump is really Axie Infinity proved that play to earn was a feasible business model and that it had legs and it was taking off. And since then, what do we do when everybody's talking about something? Well, that's usually a good indicator that it's probably time to sell. And then probably one of our smart audience members is like, hey, nobody's talking about it right now. Or in other words, it's boring, which is often when we like to look at it to see if it's a good time to buy.
yeah. Well, the volume's definitely gone up recently. It's tailed off on the correction, which is exactly what you'd want. It's now picking up again, which is showing that there's potentially some buying going on. The pinch points are that this trend has been fairly aggressive to the downside, and the big resistance point is 0.05 up here, because that's where it took a while to it consolidated there for a while and then broke down. So for me, that needs to be breached for it to show a considerable rally. In other words, that we might call it up, but it's got that barrier there that it needs to break, and so that will be in the back of my mind. But having said that, this is a really strong rally. I mean, that's turned around a lot of bearish candles, if you like, in a very short period of time. Yes, it's corrected, but it's still, this is what I would call a new impulse wave, and a correction is absolutely fine from that as long as it doesn't break this low again. I think you can go, bullish on this, and I would have a bullish view as long as it holds above this low. If it breaks that low, you got to get, well, I would personally look at it as a get out, because, I don't know how much further it would go down. So as long as it's sort of above this low, I think you could be getting on a new train here. Now, intermediate resistance is 0.04, which is the previous high. So you've got this kind of resistance zone between 0.057 and 0.04. So, I think a bullish view for now, and also if it does break up, we can see that that would be a W pattern, which would be a double bottom, and we can draw in a trend line, which would give us a natural kind of selling point or parachute out if we wanted to find a level to exit the market. But yeah, I think this is recently turned around, and I'm going to stay positive on it, given that this looks like a new trend.
Perfect. Great suggestion from one of our viewers.
Thank
I'm
you.
not sure myself as to if I'm interested in this one. Axie Infinity continues to work on themselves and innovate, and who knows, their land use case isn't ready yet. Maybe it'll be coming out soon. So we'll have to see if the gameplay really continues to be interesting, right? So it was the most interesting game that was fleshed out and playable, and the play to earn aspect really, really took off. But there's a lot of games that are coming in competing for that, like games like Peg Axie, which has like horse racing, and you can have horses and you race them every day and you can earn some of the currency, are starting to come out. Essentially what I'm saying is other play to earn games that are equally interesting, if not more interesting, are coming into the market. So though I was a very early investor in Axie Infinity, it did extremely well for me. I'm just more cautious on that ecosystem because I can't tell how well it's going to do in the coming months. That chart, though, looks pretty good. Like, I appreciate your insights, Paul, on what you're seeing. Let's take a look at Red Fox Labs, which was a suggestion by one of our viewers.
So yeah, so these charts are not actually that well suited to technical analysis. They're normally just like a good kind of quick overview. But still, at least we've got the price action here, which is great. Now, what we're seeing here in Red Fox Labs is we've got this range, and if I change it to a logarithmic chart, we can see that actually, it's actually had quite some big moves here. Now, resistance is very consistent. It's up near this high here, which is coming in at 0.33? So 0.33. So around 0.33 is the main resistance. We got some really good support down here. So it's trading in this big range. Now it's very close to the support. So we're kind of at the edge of a cliff, really. It needs to hold this support. Now I could err on the side of being bullish, but I would prefer this to turn around and be moving up just a little bit, just to confirm that it's going to put the brakes on before it takes out these significant lows. Because if it takes these lows out, I think it will go much lower. And then, you get a better opportunity depending on how you look at it. But for a technical trader, I prefer to be out of it because there'll be a bit of fresh air down there. So it's coming into support, so it should stop around here. But I'd like to see it put in a couple of green candles, and then I'd be buying in or looking to buy in with a stop below this area here, which is 0.03, 3.5. So 0.033 is looks like it's the low point in this particular range, which is also resistance as well. So that adds extra weight to this being a very significant point. So as long as it turns around and shows a bit of support there, I think you could go with it with a stop loss below that low as protection. But yeah, that's how I see it. Is there any fundamentals to go on?
So I'm just taking a look through their website. Let me share my screen. Here we go. I'd like to get a feel. So I usually go from CoinGecko. I click on the link here to make sure I always go to their right website. So rfox.com. And it takes you to their home here. And very pretty, well done site. Pretty and well done doesn't mean that the company's amazing, but it's usually an indicator. Interesting. So trying to get information from this, though, without watching this video is what I've been trying to do. Now, apparently they also have some NFTs. They partnered with like Miss Philippines to do some NFTs. They have a roadmap here. It looks okay. I mean, this is a good suggestion by one of our viewers. I would have to dig more into it to see if I'm interested, but I like to see this kind of price action. Probably they're not at the bottom, right? But they're on their way to it. And what I'll be looking for is a kind of rounded bottom like you see here. And you notice in the past when things ran up in March, it went tremendously higher from 2 cents all the way. So it did a nice 10x, did about a 10x here again. And so if we have a bull run coming up, like probably these are at some nice lows, probably going to get a little bit cheaper even. And then if volume comes in, it could go quite a bit higher.
Yeah.
So total amount, the total supply, the circulating supply is close to the total supply, and that's something I like to see. That means there's not a lot of tokens that are being unlocked, which usually puts sell pressure on it. It kind of holds the price back.
Yeah.
So not bad. $62 million market cap. You know, I'm surprised I haven't heard of this one before. Maybe I have, and I'm just not remembering it because they've been around for a while. They're at a fairly significant market cap for this pullback at 62 million. So
Yeah. Cool. Great one.
Good suggestion by one of the viewers. Let's take a look at Chainlink. And I think this one of my good friends had actually suggested this, that sometimes puts comments in the videos.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure we have looked at Chainlink before, and this overall trend is up. It's hit support, which it should really have held, and it's kind of broken through that, which isn't great, but it's still not. It's not a fast trend down. It's just a kind of meander lower, which is a good sign for the bulls because it's not like broken this level and then just collapsed. So, I'm still willing to go with the upside, even though I'm kind of doing that because of the broader trend rather than what's going on here. Now, I will have to change my view if it goes a bit lower because this is looking a bit toppy. But it just doesn't feel like the market wants to follow through on it, which is kind of weird, really. So I would say if it takes out 9, then that's it. But I'm going to try and hold a bullish view while it's above that 9 point. Now, I know that's quite a lot in percentage terms, but this is a really good trend. So I'd be trying to hold this. If I was, in it, I'd be trying to hold it. Yeah, I mean, I'm comparing it, as I say, to a lot of the other coins that we see, and most of them are either sideways or going in a downward trend. So the fact that this is in any form of bullish trend, for me, makes it that if Bitcoin can break up and it flows down to the altcoins, this will be one of the first ones to benefit. So straight chart reading it's a little bit negative that this has made such a big top, but I see really good support here at 9, and that's why I'm willing to give it a little bit more room on the downside before I panic out and say, okay, that's enough, we've got to bail and wait for another opportunity, which might come, if it gets much lower. And the really big support where I guess someone like Rainn might get interested because it'll get boring would be around 4.8 and 5. But for me, I'd have to bail out a little bit before there, and obviously not knowing what the technology does, I have to be guided by the charts.
Yeah, good analysis. Chainlink is the number one winner for the Oracle space. They have dominated the Oracle space. Now, oracles give smart contracts information about price data, right? So a lot of DeFi needs price oracles because they need to know what prices of things are, and smart contracts can't check themselves. So they need price oracles to be trustable so that it can be given a correct price and not easily manipulated. And so Chainlink has dominated that space. There are some competitors, but let's just say Chainlink probably has at least 70% market share on that. And that's why their price has been so dominant too. Excuse me. All right, let's take a look over at Kai.
Yeah.
Kai.
Kai. So is that KardiaChain or is it? Yeah. KardiaChain. Wow. I mean, that looks almost exactly the same. I wouldn't be surprised if they were part of the same thing, not knowing anything about them, of course. So we have something that trades nicely from a technical point of view. So we've got some really nice little patterns here. We've got we had a rounding, well, cup and handle pattern, I think people call it. Broke into a new high, then made a little head and shoulders pattern, came back into the range. It's gone sideways, had an attempt at the high, which it failed right on it. So we've got this big 0.15 level, which I love things like that, because I know that if it can take that out, it will surge. So we have those markers there that we know that there's been selling. So we know if it breaches it, that it's into a new realm. So for the moment, what do we do with it? I think, it's coming into some pretty decent support where it is now. There's support around here. There's a bit more support a bit lower. So I think it could just trade a bit lower before it turns around. But where I think it gets really interesting is around this 0.010, because that is key support. So I'd like it to turn around before then and then be moving into an upward trend. That's where I would get interested. So it's got to do a couple of things before I would step in there. So I think for me, it's a bit of a wait, but the chart looks really interesting. It looks similar to the other chart, but this has got a bit more kind of momentum in the correction, which is why I think I would like it to turn around before I jump in. Whereas the other one was kind of a bit more volatile as it's going down. So it's showing me that there's a bit more potential buying coming in. So I would wait on this, but I am, give it a week or two, and I think we'll be at some very good levels. And it will have decided whether it wants to go lower or it can put in a bullish print. If we draw in a trend line here, let me just draw that line in. So we've got this very clearly defined trend line, which actually is just trying to get through now. So that's the first step to it turning around, but that move is so small, given that I might not see this for another couple of weeks, I'm trying to take account of a few different strategies that might unfold there. So it's starting to break that trend line. I don't think it's done it with enough conviction for me to say it's properly behind it. So that's why I want to see, I expect it to go a bit lower before it turns around. But I'd be, as I say, there's some really good support coming up, so I'd expect to see some interest in very soon.
Yeah, let me share some fundamentals on this because I am a big fan of what I'm seeing. So KardiaChain is, essentially think of it like it's a blockchain for play to earn gaming. And there we go. My mouse wasn't wanting to move over here. So I'm looking at the linear chart rather than the logarithmic. And of course, way back here when it launched, it was extremely, extremely cheap. It went to its highs when almost everything picked up in March and April of last year. So it went all the way to 15 cents. It touched almost that price again in the Metaverse pump. And a big game that's built on it came out that was hitting a lot of hype, and that's Thetan Arena, which is one of the better play-to-earn games. So if you go from here and you click on their website, it'll take you to their website that explains some things about it. And I wanted to share this with you. First of all, built on KardiaChain. Now, Thetan Arena was one of the first games that came out on it, and it is one of the funner games that you can play on your phone that uses a style of gaming that's already really popular. And so it's done pretty well and adopted a lot of users, which has given KardiaChain some attention. But if you look at the comparisons here, on Bitcoin's transaction throughput, 7 transactions per second. ETH can do 14 right now. Hopefully they finish their upgrade in the next year and can do much better than that. Polkadot, 1,500 transactions per second. KardiaChain can do greater than 10,000 transactions per second with a 5-second transaction finality. Energy efficient, yes, it's proof of stake. Transaction fee is infinitesimally small. And so my guess is if they continue to come out with good games, or the games that are on them continue to get adoption, this will turn around and pump nicely. My thesis is that we have a massive pump coming still ahead of us that'll be bigger than March of last year. And if that happens, this and everything else will go up. But this looks like particularly attractive lows. I noted it down. Let's see what markets is trading on. It's on KuCoin, Bitforex, okay, Pancake Swap, so you can get it right on Binance Smart Chain. Gate.io, but as our viewers probably mostly know, all of a sudden Gate.io are restricted, like Canada, the US, and all these other countries. Like in the next month, you have to move all your funds off.
Wow.
And like crazy, it's like you probably can still trade on Gate.io in like Uganda or like countries that there aren't very many people. I don't know why they made this choice, but it sounds like they're cutting off about 70% of their market. So Gate.io was becoming very, very relevant and just took it a turn to put them into irrelevancy. So I wouldn't suggest Gate.io. And it's unfortunate because they had given us, we were able to get a link that we could get 20 viewers who signed up using it, get 20% of their own trading fees back, which is a pretty good deal. Well, looks like KuCoin is probably the better deal. All right.
Okay.
The better place to get it, but great suggestion by one of our viewers. Thank you. It makes me so happy that so many of you think the same way I do. And I like this from a fundamental analysis, it's as well as a technical analysis. I don't know that I'm going to buy quite yet, but probably soon. And I put a note down in my book on this one.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool.
wait, but very soon. So definitely add into this. I'm just hoping it gets a little bit cheaper.
Cool. So the next one I believe is ZIL, which is
Yes, Zilliqa.
Zilliqa.
Yeah, it was the
Okay.
first third generation blockchain that came up with this idea of sharding, which is now being used by a lot of blockchains. So it doesn't matter if you have an idea first, it has everything to do with if you implement it first and well.
Yeah. So this is this is a very nice technical pattern. Textbook inverse head and shoulders. We got left shoulder, head, right shoulder here that kicked off this rally. And if you can't see that, let me just move it to a weekly chart and it'll probably look a lot clearer. So you've got left shoulder, head, right shoulder. You've got a double bottom as well in the break, which is the sort of thing I look out for as key trading opportunities. Now it's come out of a double top here, so it's correcting. But why this area is significant and why I'm pointing that out is because that is where there's massive support. So the market's coming into that area. So I think it will be a buy in this zone. So it's coming into a buy zone. As long as it doesn't break back below, we can be positive on it. So we've got a really solid kind of grounding there, and it's working its way down. But this is still, I believe, an upward trend. So we've got sort of wave one, wave two, a corrective wave here, and I believe that this will go back up. So with it moving lower, I think that could give an opportunity. Now, where I would get out if I'd bought it would be if it breaks below this area, and that would be 0.025. So around 0.025, you've got to give it a little bit of leeway because sometimes the markets hit a level, just go a little bit beyond and then turn around. But we don't want to give it too much so that, it's much lower and you're kind of wondering, then you can get caught in, do I just hit, hope that it goes back up? And you might be right, it might go back up, but it might not. So capital preservation is something I need to do from a technical point of view. So that's why I'm always looking for these exits, just in case I'm wrong. But for the moment, it's correcting down. It's got really good support, and that's the zone I'd be potentially looking to buy in.
Yeah. What's interesting is them noticing a pattern from our talk, which is confirming my bias, and maybe it's just my bias, that we are going to hit a massive run coming up and that we're seeing a lot of bottoming patterns from some of the altcoins. Maybe they're not at the very bottom, but they're showing signs that they're near the bottom, which is awesome. A lot of what I say is buy when it's boring, and it's been very, very boring. And why? Because usually it is hard to tell when you're at the very bottom. And this is the frustrating part about being at lows, right? So I loaded up on a bunch of OMI tokens at 7.4 cents, I think, and 0.74 cents and 0.67 cents. Well, unfortunately for me, it dropped wick down the other day to 0.25 cents. Because you don't know where the bottoms are. And this reminds me of back when I was buying Cardano at 7 cents and 4 cents and 3 cents. I've loaded up a ton at 3 cents, only to find that it did wick down all the way to 1.7 cents. And of course you kick yourself and you're like, oh man, I wish I could have had 2 to 3 times as much if I had known it would go down that bottom. And is the downside of buying at bottoms. But when you're buying at bottoms, often you're buying at a very cheap level. And then I patiently wait for it to turn around. Now we're seeing lots of signs that things are turning around. Probably not quite yet, but we're getting a lot of signs that even though we're not necessarily at the bottom, we might be near it on a lot of these things. And that might be correct, that there's a massive run coming in the coming months. I hope so, because if so, it's going to be very, very good for most of us that have positioned in a lot of these altcoins. They're the higher risk that generally get you way higher returns during these big run-ups. All right, I know we're running short on time, but let's take a look. We got 3 left: Spores, Form, and OMI.
Okay, so Spores, Sports and Leisure, it's that one, isn't it? Sport and Leisure, you against the US dollar. Now, wow, this
No, that was
isn't. Oh no,
SPO.
it's this one. So it's Spores Network.
Spores Network, yeah.
That's it. Yeah, remember that always caught me out. Okay, well that other one looked interesting.
Yeah, that other chart. I was like, nope, I'm sure that one's not it.
Yeah, so it's I'll just go back because I clicked on the Bitcoin one. So against the US dollar, let's just go back to the daily chart. Yeah, so look, this has had a long downward trend. It turned around, good rally. It's reversed. Unfortunately, it's reversed more than 100% of that first move. I don't mind it going up and then coming back down again, but it's got to stay below. Sorry, it's got to stay above the previous low, and it hasn't done that in this case. So it's rallied. Don't know what news had come out, but that should have been correction, and then off we go. So it's come back too far, and it's broken the low again. So unfortunately, it looks like it's going to get a bit cheaper before it turns around. Now, I hope it does turn around, but I can't see any pattern or any support. You know how sometimes I'm looking at areas where I say, well, if it goes to this point, it should stop, and if it breaks that, I'll get out. Well, if there's nothing but fresh air on the downside, I don't know when it will stop, so I don't know where to get out. And I don't like that. That uncertainty for me is I've got to know where the exit is. And that's just kind of my style of analysis and trading. So I'd have to wait until this shows some sign of strength. Now, what I could say, or what I would say, is that if it does rally and turn around, this would be perfect for some form of double bottom. But I can't invent price action, so I'd have to wait for that. But it would be classic if that's one low, it makes a new low, turns around, and then starts to go up again. If it does that, then that would be a really important reversal pattern, a really good technical pattern, to indicate that it's going to go much higher. Because if it breaks this, then it would go this length. We project the height of the pattern to the upside, so it would target way beyond the high of this particular move. So that's why I'm willing to let the market base before I get in. But I'm not waiting for it to go way up. I just want it to make a reversal pattern. So for the moment, unfortunately, it's a bit of a wait here.
I'm going to share a little way I have to cheat and know when the price looks like this, where it will likely slow down or stop and end its reversal. And that has to do with what its ICO price was, and then if we can find it, what the pre-sale price, or more importantly, what the seed token price was. Now, unfortunately, I can't find all of that, but one of the things I do is I literally Google Spores ICO price, and that led me to the ICO drop site, and it does give us some information. Tells us that the token price at the ICO, or the initial DEX offering, was 0.25 cents. Well, what's it currently trading at? It is currently trading at 0.25 cents. So interestingly, and that is the token price. That's not the ICO price. The ICO price was 0.5 cents. So it's actually half the ICO price. My guess is it's really close to the pre-sale price and or the seed price. The seed price is usually the very lowest price, and I don't know what the seed price was on this. My guess is it's right about here. And what happens is, so pre-sale investors and especially seed investors, as they get their tokens unlocked, if they look and see that the price is actually lower than what they bought them at, sometimes they'll just sit on them rather than selling them. And so that often ends up being the floor of where things retrace during this vesting schedule. Now, I wish we had more patterns to look at, but this new type of vesting schedule where they really squeeze the initial release and then they vest the tokens over the first year to 2 years, that's pretty new, as in the last 2 years. So there's not a lot of history to look at. So you have to just make some guesses. And my guess is that that's pretty much near the bottom. And they came out, when was this? This was 28th of July. So that would have been about 9 months ago. There's probably 3 more months of their token vesting, maybe less. And that's going to then end the downward sell pressure on this. Now, should the market turn around, all of a sudden we're going to see some buy pressure and possibly significant buy pressure on projects like Spores. And that's why I've been very bullish on this one. I've been picking up more while it's cheap, even though I already had a position. I've been adding to it while it's low. And you see it when we're looking on the linear price here, you see how this nice rounding going on. Doesn't mean it won't possibly get a little bit cheaper. It might. And what I do is I just dollar cost average in, usually not end up hitting the exact low, but that dollar cost average, like when I shared the Cardano, being like, at the time you really kick yourself. You're like, oh, I could have got so much cheaper. And then when Cardano, something that you're buying, like when Cardano went to $1 and then like $3, you no longer remember all the pain you went through of buying near the bottoms and having it go a little bit cheaper on you. And you're like, oh, I could have gotten way more. You're just super happy with the decision that you made.
Yeah. So just a quick update on my chart. I've just seen that it actually, for some reason, the data stopped at the end of January.
Oh, goodness.
So what I was saying about it going a bit lower, it seemed to be, I didn't notice that until just now when you were saying what the price was. But actually, it has followed pretty much what we thought it would do. Go a bit lower in that trend. But
Yep.
since we've got the update, it has actually flattened out exactly as you were saying. Near that ICO price. So that is interesting. It's stalled in terms of the downward trend. Now we need to see it turning up, and that's when I get interested in it. So it's done kind of phase one, step one of it. It just needs to turn around now.
Yeah. I know a lot of things are setting these up so that you're going to have, if it continues like this, because you like those setups when they break out and you can see that they've broken out. And that's the time period where you get really active. And so I think in the coming months, I'm going to see a lot of that activity that you love to see.
Yeah, I mean, we have an expression in the technical world. We say, we let the smart people buy at the bottom. And, that's because there are people who know more than we do about these markets. So we wait until it turns, and that's when we get in. So we know that there are people out there who just are falling over themselves at certain prices because they're so good. But we don't know where that is. So we wait for the smart people to buy, and then we join the trend with them a little bit further on. But of course, they will have an advantage, but it also means we will see when it turns around, and that's when we get interested in it. So so I think the next one is
Formation Finance. And this one I followed for a long time, since last summer.
Yeah. So we got there's a few here. So we got Formation Fi.
Yep, that's it.
Maybe it's that one. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So if this is the one, very smooth in terms of the technicals. So it's like it's either down or when it goes down, it goes down. It just like you just see a repeat. That's really unusual. Like some markets a bit more volatile. So I'm guessing this is pretty small. Now it's had a good wick up today. That's taken out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days of previous price action. It's done that before and it's not sustained. So I'm a little sort of wary about just jumping in on one. I think we need to see a bit more before I would get excited or say, look, I think this trend is over. Because if I'm buying it, I'm saying I'm calling the end of this trend. And you can call the end of a trend in a couple of ways. One is a reversal pattern. So if we get an inverse head and shoulders, double bottom, spike low, or something like that. Another way is if it breaks a trend line. So it could break a very, what I'd say, aggressive trend line. But because it's an aggressive trend line, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the trend. It could just be a consolidation. So you have to be careful. So it's broken this downward trend line. Great. It's going to go sideways. So at least it's, it's turning around. But is it the end of the trend? So one bar does not indicate the end of a trend for me. So I would really need for it to break this trend line. And then I'd say, okay, now we're seeing something a bit more significant and potentially this trend line, to show that it really has formed a base. So I need to wait here because I need to see some form of, more significant reversal pattern, like a double bottom, inverse head and shoulders or something like that. But I acknowledge that this is a very decent short-term rally. And if I was a speculator and a very short-term trader, I might jump in on that and put a stop below here to say, well, my risk is buying it here at 0.013. My loss, if I'm wrong, is at 0.0114. So I've got a relatively small loss, potential big profit if it goes up. So that's highly speculative. And it's, you could be out within a day or within 2 days. So it's not really a long-term investment to trade like that. But that is a potential trade you could take from this type of price action. But that's not how I necessarily trade.
Yeah, let me share with the audience some about this. I recently talked to one of the team members, and they said the team is working hard, which is great on this. And so I like to get kind of a feel and make sure everything's going smooth and that the team is still working hard on it. And that confirmed it because I've been very interested in this and very interested at lows because you can come to the website here, launch the app. You can stake here and you can stake and make a significant return on your tokens. And so I have a large position. I added to my position on this and I'm staking them. And so I like this price. I'm possibly going to buy, well, shoot. I'm going to wait to see if it settles out of this big play because I already have a ton already. But if it settles back down along this, I'll probably add to my position. Specifically, here's where I buy it. I buy it through Pancake Swap. That way I can easily then take it and stake it right on their app using MetaMask to stake it and then just get their juicy staking rewards on it. So that's my thoughts on it. And what I'm doing. I like this one. So for me, it would be a buy if it didn't have the, I hate this kind of thing on a token that I like for the long term. Looking up some information on it, check this out. We're below the ICO price, which makes me so happy. 3 cents was the IDO price. And it's essentially trading at half of that even after this pump. It was probably, my guess is the seed price was probably all the way down around 1 cent, maybe 1.5 cents. So if the seed price was 1.5 cents and it's trading below the seed price, if that seed price was 1 cent, it went almost down to it, which often is pretty close to the floor. And it's not to say that things can't get cheaper than the seed price. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they even get to 1/3 of the seed price. But that's what I take it as, is that we're pretty near the bottom there.
Cool.
All right. We got one more to jump into, and this is OMI. Woohoo!
Woohoo.
I love this token.
Okay, so now they changed their ticket, didn't they? Or it's still
it's Ecomi.
It's still that. Okay.
Yeah,
so
Ecomi is the name of the project. OMI is their ticker. So right.
Yeah. So
okay,
we were looking. Yeah, so we're looking at this range back here because remember in the other coin I was talking about the inverse head and shoulders and how it had that support point. So here's the support point that it should have really held on to. So we can see the effect of it breaking that support. That's got a few people rattled and they've emptied, sort of bailed out of the position. Now, if the technology is good, that becomes an opportunity. From a technical point of view, I need it to recover this point before I get, interested in it, because that for me is a critical level. I mean, it's not, how can I say, if it was breaking a all-time low, I'd be much more concerned. It's broken a very important level, and it's done what markets normally do when they break these levels. It's had a big move down. But the overall chart from here, if we take a step back, we can see, well, you know, if you bought it here all the way back on May 21, you know, you're not that far away from the price that you had now. So in other words, we could view this whole area here as pretty much a range. It's not gone anywhere. So it's not perhaps as quite as bearish as it might seem. Having said that, the rate of these last few candles has been a bit aggressive. So it does need to lighten up on that in terms of momentum. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be through some lows very, very quickly. I can't buy it yet. I need to see this slow down, turn around, and move back up again. As I say, my level will be 0.0048. That's my recovery point. Where I would be tempted, because it's potentially got a bit too cheap, would be around here, which is the 0.0026 area, because then there is a bit of support from this breakout. So this is where the upward trend really started for me. Okay, so you had the low here, the move up here, and the consolidation, but I really like when the market is making these double bottoms. That was the beginning of that phase. So it hit that resistance, came back, broke through it. That's really nice technicals. So I think around here, which is getting very close, is where it should hold. If it doesn't hold that, the next level below there is 0.00228.
You know what's interesting about this chart that we've got is it looks like it's stopping in the end of, okay, yeah,
Yeah,
stopping the 24th of February. It's
right.
not
So
continuing through present.
right. So this is another one that's done that. So I'm slightly puzzled why the data doesn't cross over. Do they perhaps have to pay for the exchanges and they don't
Well,
want to do
they,
that?
they they do have a token update that's been
Hmm.
going through it, and they've been migrating off of the uh, off of I want to say what is it? Go Chain,
Hmm.
migrating over to Immutable X, and
Right.
so maybe it's related to that. So we did have this savage pullback, and recently, and it reached some really nice lows that I wish I had known would come.
Yeah.
Because boy, I mean, this is Christmas being able to buy this cheap, and we may get lucky that we get a buy cheaper. But there's some fundamental things on their roadmap that I'm really, really bullish on. There's part of what I think is happening here is that two things, couple people, or a lot of people getting frustrated that some things they're waiting for have taken longer than they want. And so they get frustrated. Secondly, one of the bigger exchanges you can trade this on was Gate.io. Now, Gate.io is kicking off all their all their customers from all the
Right.
major countries that they were in.
So
And what's
forcing
interesting is
selling.
you can't take, because of the blockchain chain below Ecomi that they're changing, going from GoChain over to Immutable X. Perhaps Gate.io hasn't updated that, but Gate.io won't let you withdraw it, saying if you don't withdraw by this time frame, you're going to lose all your funds. And oh, by the way, you can't withdraw OMI tokens from there to the chain. So we're
Wow.
probably forced to sell, and that might be what's amplified the selling is
Wow.
because you are forced to sell. Now, whether they update it so you can withdraw them later before that end of the 30 days, I don't know. But that would force you to sell now. You can then move the funds over. Say you sell to USDT, you can move those funds over to an exchange like Bitfinex, and then you could buy there. But some people might just be like, peace, I'm out. And they might not be moving it over to the other exchange and then buying. So that's probably part of it because it's not on a lot of big exchanges. Now that it's being moved over to Immutable X, in the coming months, it probably will get on the big exchanges, which is why I'm excited about the future. So sometimes you have these pain points. People panic out. They say, I'm done. And you see these strong wicks down right before you have a massive run, like
Yeah. Right.
what you call the mistake in the ground.
Yeah. So I mean, you definitely have some great insight there. show that it would turn around. I would have to wait for that to happen. But I think it's nice to see this long-term chart, because it does actually put this in perspective, because you can see that this was the first kind of big phase for this coin, and this is all corrective. So, and it's gone on for a long time, as corrections do. But if we get this next wave up, it will go way beyond this, because this was just the first phase of it. It was the first sort of phase of this coin. So there is potentially some very big upside to be had. And that's why I'm personally willing to wait patiently for signs of a turnaround. But I completely understand that you get very excited when you know information that, like what you've just said. I mean, that's fantastic insight into why people are selling. It's a little unfortunate that's happening, and you don't want people to be forced to sell because of those types of reasons, but it does explain what's going on. And it's not and as you say, if they're saying that things have been delayed, that's much better than them not coming at all. And from what you've said about the technologies, they really are exciting in this particular coin.
Yeah, exactly. They have some really big things coming, I think. So for me, this is a buy area. So for me, I'm going to buy some more at these prices. It's unfortunate that Gate.io is going the direction that they are, because it's been a very helpful, useful exchange. And we're sad to see that decision, because so much of our audience is in Canada, the US, and many other countries, that they're then forced to leave this exchange, which had a lot of these smaller market cap coins that we like that aren't on the big exchanges yet. Not that this has a tiny market cap. Its market cap's almost at 2 billion, even at these prices. It says 2 billion. The market cap actually should show that it's about half that, but that's still $1 billion market cap. All right. I want to thank everyone that's here for the show. Thank you, Paul, for joining us.
My pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for the suggestions, guys. See you soon.
All right. In the audience, if you're ready to be a rainmaker and join the Navy SEALs of crypto and level up your crypto game, do it. I know this contrarian approach, coupled with fundamental analysis, you add in a lot of patience. It works very, very well over time. If you haven't already, consider that all notifications bell and just tune in when you see our videos pop up. We do a live stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And now also an additional VV live stream Wednesday evenings at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. And then we have shorter videos that launch throughout the week. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Remember, no rain, no gain.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit right before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, go parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road, cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.